does God intervene or is He at work the whole time? And so because we often say that, don't we? I'm glad God intervened. Oh, I'm so grateful that God stepped in the picture. Oh, isn't that amazing that God, came in and rescued? And rightly so, because it is true. He does deliver, He does rescue, and He does intervene. At the same time, you think about, I was reading through the book of Genesis and the life of Joseph. Joseph, if you remember, Joseph the dreamer. Joseph the dreamer was, as a young kid, was quite arrogant. God gave him a dream and says, all of you will bow before me, told his older brothers. So his older brothers were upset, threw him in a pit. After he was thrown in the pit, sold into slavery. After being sold into slavery, went to Egypt, became a slave at the Potiphar's house. After being in Potiphar's house, was tried to be seduced by Mrs. Potiphar, falsely accused, thrown into prison, being in prison, for about 3 years. But, he would interpret dreams, cupbearer, baker. Cupbearer got out. Cupbearer talked to the Pharaoh. Pharaoh had a dream. Cupbearer remembered there was a guy who interprets dream. He pulls Joseph out of the prison, brings him to Pharaoh's court. Pharaoh promotes Joseph second in command. Now think about that for a moment. Did God intervene so that He could be second in command, so that He could help Israel from their famine because they had 7 years of plenty in Egypt? Or was God at work the whole time? Why? Because while he was before he could be second in command, he had to be in prison to meet the baker and the cupbearer. For him to be at the prison, he had to be in Mrs. Potiphar's house to be seduced by her. Okay? And then before he would be in Mrs. Potiphar's house, he had to be sold in slavery, so he had to be in the pit. Before he had to be in the pit, his brothers had to what? Be jealous of him and just all that. The string of events, one after the other. And in our minds, yes, surely God does intervene, but in the great scheme of things, He was in charge the whole time. And I need us to understand today, church, that yes, God steps in the picture, and it seems like from our perspective, but God doesn't only connect the dots, He places the dots on the paper. He's in charge. And when you have a God that is in charge, the Bible calls Him the only wise God, the wise King. And if He does that, you have assurance. My Father in heaven is the wise King. And the wise King who knows me inside out is the wise King that knows from the beginning to the end. And He deserves all my trust and my faith and all of my worship.